I was lying in bed thinking about the circuit. How do I simulate a massive amount of iron or other ferromagnetizable mass that is being held in conjunction with the circuit? So the circuit's in the project box, and somehow the magnetizability of the chassis of the EV, the massive mass, is somehow coupled to the circuit magnetically. How would I show this in a simulation? What have I not made use of? What quality? What function? And the funny thing is, I have overlooked, well, magnetic coupling is the first thing that comes to mind, right? You couple some coils together, but what does microcap allow me? Not a whole lot of wiggle room, but it allows me one thing I have never made use of, and I tried it just now, and what it does is it increases stability in the sense that I'm able to take the simulation for a longer period of time without reaching the fatalistic matrix of singular error, which means I'm able to amass more voltage, and I'm able to amass more voltage even without extending the duration of the simulation, just by making this one change, but repeated several times. But one time I cannot use it. So what I did was, I went on the presumption, okay, we've got a coupling here between the transformer primary coil and the motor coil as this acting as the secondary. And I put 0.5 coupling coefficient because I'm expecting very low efficiency of coupling. And then I thought to myself, well, what about these two coils over here? I only have 4 coils. That's all I have to work with. So how much can I milk them for in terms of increased stability, which means a longer duration of simulation, which is good for the circuit because that means it's not less stressed, which means probably less overheating. Any case, so what I determined was I need to put these two coils together with a very strong coupling. Unlike this, which is 0.5, these two, look at this, they're on either side of the spine. And they're supposed to be part of the same emulation of the same copper sphere or bronze sphere a hollow sphere or spheroid. So these should be 0.99 coupling coefficient. And that's what I did on this coupling element here, this lumped inductor element here, or whatever you want to call it. Some people, if they want to be derogatory, they'll say, oh, it's just lumped inductors, it's not a transformer. Yeah, but this way I get to put resistance in the coils, whereas the transformer model in microcap, I don't get to do that. And so I get ridiculously high values that are also unstable, destabilizing to the circuit simulation. I don't like that. I want stability. I also want high values, hoping always for the holy grail of getting lots of current, which, nope, didn't achieve it. In terms of the ratio proportion between current and voltage, was I able to close the gap between them? No. But by raising the voltage, I automatically raise the current, but the difference between them is still huge, unfortunately. I did find a few amps, a few units of amps somewhere here where the voltage difference is very large. But that's only because the voltage difference is very large. Okay, anyway, so these two coils are coupled with a positive 0.99 coupling coefficient. And then I thought, okay, what else can I do? I can couple these two coils with these two coils. But now I get to do something in my head that I'm estimating I'm doing here in the simulation. I create a negative coupling coefficient, and not a very high one, 0.5, just like these are, between this right one and this right one, and this left one and this left one. And that's this one and this one. So I've got a 0.5 coupling coefficient here. Wait a minute, this one is not a motor coil on the left. It's a transfer coil, a transformer coil, transferring, coupling, magnetically transferring energy from the circuit to the motor, assuming the motor has only one set of coils, not a coil on the rotor. If it's an AC single phase, it's not going to have a coil there. It's going to have a squirrel cage, which is a floating coil. and it's going to have starter coils, which are floating coils. So the only coil that's depicted here is the stator coils. So I could make these negative coupling coefficient, negative 0.5. I could do the same thing with these two coupling coefficients, in which I'm coupling the right coil here with the right coil here and the left coil here with the left coil here. I can make them negative 0.5 each. And lo and behold, the circuit becomes more stable, and the voltages, the nodal voltages, go up. So now I got teravolts over here. I've got gigavolts over here. I got megavolts over here. No, excuse me, giga. Excuse me. No, I got giga over here. I got mega only in a few, yeah, just in the perimeter here. The bronze perimeter is mega. But I got giga in the interior, which is a good sign because it shows the spark gap is contributing. That means the spark gap is actually firing, thank God. And it's probably not sporadic firing. It's probably always on. Current is probably flowing continuously across the spark gap. And so that gives me giga surrounding the battery. Unfortunately, the voltages match, so the actual flow of current is minuscule. The only time I get differences is across the capacitors within each sphere. For instance, I get a difference here between giga and mega. So I got some nice voltage transfer, namely aka current, going on between the two plates on either side of the two plates, emanating out of the two plates of the capacitor, right? Current doesn't go through a dielectric unless we have dielectric breakdown, and then it's not a capacitor anymore. It's more like a spark gap. Be that as it may, that technicality we always like to repeat once in a while to remind ourselves that current does not flow through a capacitor. You can get waves appear to be flowing through, and you know, it's more like a prism, or a, you know, it's electrostatically being transferred from one plate to the other, and then it emanates out of the second plate as a current. This is something I covered in a video ages ago, but it's worth repeating now. A capacitor is a voltage-oriented device. It cannot transfer current. It only transfers voltage. Yet, current occurs on each plate. It manifests there. It's received there as a current, and it manifests on the opposite plate as current. Meanwhile, a transformer situation, a coupling of two coils, is the opposite. The transfer is magnetic, but the reception is voltage. So when we look at the coils on a transformer, the two terminals, whatever voltage difference, that's what it has to work with to magnetically transfer that voltage difference to the other coil, where a voltage difference appears at the other coil to exit and come out into the circuit. And so what it transfers is opposite to what it receives and emits. Okay, and it's the opposite of what you'd expect, because a coil, you think, oh no, it receives magnetism, doesn't it? Doesn't it give out magnetism? No, that's the job of the core, whatever the core is, air core, iron core, is to transfer the magnetic field between them. But the reception and the transmittance is voltage, a voltage difference between the two terminals. It's completely the opposite, because it's always a conjoint of oppositions, which are opposite to the capacitor. All right, so enough of that little topic. So I'm not getting current across the battery because the voltage equalization is so similar that I'm back in, I'm back in the mud again of hoping for current to come out of this thing. Anytime I try to get current out of it, all I manage to do is get more voltage. So I was able to raise the simulation time to 600 seconds from 500. 500 was when I didn't put in these extra couplings that are negative, or even this one that's positive. I only had the coupling here between these two coils, 0.5 positive. But once I start to add in two couplings here to cross-couple negative and put negativity here, and add a cross-coupling between these two, a very strong 0.99 positive, only then do I get to increase the simulation time. I haven't tried between 600 or I believe 700 doesn't work. Well, I don't know. See, I can't remember now. No, I did try 700. That's right. My memory's short term. Yeah, 700 I get matrix is singular error. So I don't know how high above 600 I can go. Maybe 650, who knows, you know? Let's try. Let's try right now. While we're talking about it. You're not going anywhere, are you? Oh, I'm so silly. Hey, you got nothing else better to do but watch me do videos. Ah, 650 is okay. All right, so what have we got here? 21 tera. Uh-oh, I've gone down. Not very efficient. Oh my God, U's and M's. I think I'll stick with what I had before. But I can't do Control Z. I've got to go back. That's one thing. The circuit doesn't, it ignores runtime, even though it makes all the difference in the world. So I don't get, I don't get to back error or back change it. I got to do it manually. So 600 seconds. And, you know, maybe there's some other optimal value of 610 or 590, you know. I could, you know, if I put the cell phone down and stop this video, I could see if I could tweak it and find its sweet spot, its more precise sweet spot. But as a roundabout figure, 600 is not bad. It keeps to a nice whole roundabout number. Yeah, up to 400 tera and 60 gig and almost 60 gigs. So there's my optimal sweet spot, more or less, nice and simple. And 600 seconds is an even divisor of 60 seconds. So that's what, 10 minutes, right? So that's not bad. In 10 minutes time to amass all these nodal voltages, which again are not in the circuit unless there's a voltage difference within each component, such as the capacitors. Yeah, only the capacitors. The spark gap, there's like no current flowing because the voltage difference is the same on both terminals of the spark gaps. That's right. Let's go in there and see what it looks like. Let's go, because they allow you to do that. Let's see. Because there are components that make up the spark gap, one type of which is a voltage source. They have 3 voltage sources inside a spark gap macro. So let's go see what's in there. Now I made some changes to my macro. I did some computation, got some information on the internet, and I hypothetically estimated based on that information that there's a 16 micrometer distance between the 2 electrodes of a neon gas-filled neon bulb. And I found out, of course, the electrodes are needle-shaped, so the capacitance of a neon bulb is very small. It's 1 picofarad between the plates, and when it fires or arcs, it's 3 picofarads. And that's it. And what's suggestive of capacitance is the shape of the electrodes. They make them flat plates that are just like the plates of a capacitor. See? Kind of the same. So that's something, if we made our custom-made neon bulbs by changing the shape of the electrodes into capacitor plates and bring them close together, not only will we change the voltage breakdown point, which is actually a misnomer, it's the resistance breakdown, the voltage follows suit, but we'll also be destabilizing the circuit, so it'll be easier to get matrix of singular error, which is good because it means the thing is becoming more erratic, but it's also becoming more extreme and giving us extreme values of positive and negative units of values, you know, such as units of current or units of voltage. But it also increases the output in general, not just makes it more extremely divergent. output, making it harder for the simulator to converge on a guess estimation of what's going on. So that would be an area of improvement right there. And that's something that we normally don't consider. I mean, but, you know, who makes their own neon bulbs? But if you've got a vacuum tube with a valve on the side that's meant for pumping out air on your own, you could just as easily pump out the air and fill it with neon gas or helium gas, because the two are very similar in their properties. I think helium is actually better than neon as a negative resistant gas, ionizable noble gas, but it's only slightly better. Neon is like cost effective, it's right there, but helium is available for parties, filling balloons. You can buy a helium canister. So it's possible we could buy vacuum tube capacitors and refill them with helium gas and use them as a helium noble gas discharge tube, such as a neon bulb, only our own custom made, with custom capacitance, because we'll be using a vacuum tube capacitor in place of the neon bulb with increased capacitance. Sound fair to say? That's pretty easy, off the shelf. You don't even have to custom make it, you just custom arrange it with off the shelf parts, provided you have the equipment to do so. You know, a pump to evacuate the air, and then some kind of switching valve that doesn't lose your vacuum as you switch over to refill it with helium gas. So that's a distinct possibility. What effect it has on the glass bulb, you know, maybe you'll shatter the glass at those operating conditions that it was not designed to match up with. Then we have to get into custom fabricating the glass bulb itself for that vacuum tube capacitor. And vacuum tube capacitors, interestingly enough, have capacitances similar to the pre-existing capacitance of a neon bulb macro, namely in the range of 5 picofarads. So it's very interesting. It's not much different, even though they use plates in those things instead of needle electrodes. What's going on there? Does that mean because it's a vacuum, it's a poor dielectric by comparison to neon gas? I don't know what that means. But anyway, let's go in here and see what we got. So here are the voltage sources. There's 4 of them, and they use formulas to determine what the voltage is. And we got all kinds of things going on here: a resistor, a capacitor, more resistors, capacitors, grounds, coils. Here's our negative resistance in this resistor. The parameter, one of the parameters, where is it? Where are you? Here it is. R neg is -1. So they never vary. They don't care about the value, the absolute value of the negative resistance. They just care that it's injecting in series with this coil and this resistor a negative resistance. Meanwhile, this coil is the inductance value of the electrodes, while this represents the resistance of the electrodes. So this right here, these two components, the inductor and the resistor, are the electrodes, the resistance and their inductance. Meanwhile, here's our arcing capacitance, and here is our plate capacitance. Then we got resistance of 10 megs between the two electrodes to show what the resistance is in the gas medium. This is just the resistance of the electrodes themselves, while this is the resistance in the gap between them. R4, I don't know what that is, 1e to the 10, but it's there, and there's a current source here. So we got 4 voltage sources, 1 current source, 6 voltage sources. I didn't see those down here. 6 and 1 current source. No, 7 voltage sources and 1 current source. That's a lot of voltage sources. That's a lot of energy sources. That's 8 energy sources inside of a spark gap. But let's see what kind of nodal voltages we get. So where is the button for nodal voltage? It's not engaged. Why is that? Or it is already engaged. Why isn't it giving me nodal voltages? Doesn't want to. Okay, I thought I was going to get some of that. I thought I was going to get me some satisfaction. Okay, let's close out this window. Let's try a different spark gap. Whoopsies. Sometimes if I double click too fast. Alright, so now maybe if I engage the button. Nope, it's not going to give it to me. Alright, but if I hover over it, it might give me something. Let's see what it gives me. Where's the camera lens? Okay, what does it tell me? I'm hovering over the capacitor, and it's telling me 0 amperage, but it doesn't tell me the voltage. That's convenient. Very inconvenient. It's not giving me voltages. It doesn't want to. Alright, scratch that. I mean, I could click on it and see what it gives me. Yeah, that's the only way I'll find out. Alright. So, what do we got here? Oh, nano. It's just the nano range. Getting some nice spikes on either side of the midline. Ooh, very nice triangular spikes. And that is R5 inside a vacuum tube spark gap number 3. R5. So if we go back out, whoopsie. Oh well. Anywho, I'm too lazy to go back in there. So that was my improvement. And so what I envision is see, we think about wrapping a coil, a cylinder, a cylindrical shaped coil, or a toroid, which is simply a cylinder that goes around and it's like the snake biting its tail or the doggy chasing its tail. It creates a ring, a toroid. That's okay, but if we put lumped inductors on that coil form, whether it's a cylindrical coil or a toroidal coil, it's still kind of boring. But what happens if we wrap a sphere? How do you wrap a sphere? Well, like any ball of twine, you keep going different directions. And lo and behold, that's when I realized I need to try negative coupling coefficient, because what if you wrap a sphere one way, in one plane of axis, and then you wrap it the other way? You've got 2 of your 3 possible wrapping planes in conjoint magnetizable union with each other, and yet they're at 90 degrees, which means it should be, in that instance, a negative coupling coefficient. So this is how I interpret a negative coupling coefficient. And why the simulator allows me to do it is because they are allowing me to wrap a sphere at 90 degrees, 2 coils at 90 degrees to each other, as opposed to a coil or a toroid pair of lumped inductors in which I wrap them the same way on top of each other, giving me a positive coupling coefficients. So that's how I think to do a negative coupling coefficient, because if you consider the mass of a chassis that's magnetically coupled to the circuit somehow, what would that mean? I mean, you've got this mass that it's not the shape of a cylinder, and you throw that out the window. I mean, so monkey goose here. What are we trying to regulate and orchestrate in a nice functional manner to get high efficiency and not just be gobbledygook? Well, we make sure our wrappings are at 90 degrees to each other. And it's only a pair. We're not trying for all 3 planes. Just 2 planes of wrappings at 90 degrees to each other at a time. We could do 3, but now I'm not sure how that works. Well, I got 3 negatives already. Yeah, but see, the minute... Oh, I see. So they would have to be 3 separate planes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that, because I've got 4 coils with 4 different relationships, so I'm not sure what sense to make of it. Only one of which is not negative. So actually, I have 3 pairs of coils in negative relationships, which means 2 spheres of wrappings, possibly. I don't know. Well, no, it's only 2 coils. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would work. It might have to be 3 spheres with 2 wrappings on each to get that. Yeah, well, maximally, that's what it would have to be. I don't know if you can minimize that, shrink it down to 2 spheres of 3 coils, and still work out the logistics of getting the exact polarity of coupling coefficient correctly negative. I don't know. Be that as it may, I thought a sphere is the way to go. in terms of my imagination, how do I interpret this simulation, the magnetic couplings, and that's how I would do it. I think that's everything, because I didn't make any other changes. So this is, how did I save this as? Oh, H2. I could have gone to I, but this is such a minor minor difference from H, version 8B2H, that I just said H2. So it's a second version of H. Yeah. All right, so I'll add that to the prior zip file, the FGH, because it's still another variant of H, and that's what I'll rename it as, I guess, or something or other. Something or other. No, I'll just keep it as H. I won't rename the zip file. I'll just add it in. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video.